Uh-oh, looks like rain.
Hi, I'm Scott. In this video, I'm going to show you the modification I'm making to the eject hole that's located underneath the right ramp on the Whirlwind Pinball Machine, so that when a shot is made from the flippers to that eject hole, it will actually stay in the eject hole. Now, the reason for this modification is because when I'm playing the Whirlwind Pinball Machine, I was noticing that a lot of my shots that were hit to the eject hole were coming out. They would hit around and come back down underneath the flap or out on the side. And that didn't seem right to me. So I did some research on the internet, and I found out there was a whole bunch of other people who had the Whirlwind Pinball Machine that also were experiencing this same problem. So I did some research and I found a solution to the problem. In this video, I'm going to cover how I implemented that solution and how it impacts that shot, and it helps that eject hole actually work the way it was designed. So now most of my shots will stay in the eject hole instead of actually falling out of it. Also in this video, I'll cover how we can adjust our flippers so that we can actually make a backhand shot into this eject hole, and that we can properly make a forward shot from the left flipper into this eject hole. All right, let's get started. In this video, I'm just going to show you on the playfield what I'm talking about using my fingers instead of the ball. So regardless if you use your right flipper bat, if it's adjusted right, or your left flipper bat, when you make the shot with the ball up to the saucer that's underneath this ramp, there's a saucer right there, the ball will come up, hit the back place of the saucer, run around the saucer, and then kick out here or kick right back down. And so it's like 1 out of 10 it makes it. It's, you know, you're expecting it to be 10 out of 10. So that's the problem and the location of the problem. And I'll show you some video segments here of me making the shots, but the shot's not saying the ball kicking out or rolling back down. All right, now that we've seen the problem, let me show you a solution I have. Now there's two ways of doing the exact same thing. One is you can buy these 1-inch pads, and they look very similar to this type of pad, and I'll put more information in the video here, where you could order from like Marco's or something like that. I think they're 1-inch by 1-inch pads, 1-inch by 1-inch by 1/4 pad, and you get them for $3, and you could trim them down to size, or you can use this vinyl foam seal that I use whenever I redo my lockdown bars. I put this foam seal on there, and that's the right width and thickness of everything. This foam is. And what I do is you can cut that down to this 1-inch by 1-inch by 1/4 inch thickness. So you take this, and you have to take some of this ramp loose, some of the plastics off, but you stick this underneath on that metal bracket that's over the eject hole. And you can see it right there, it's installed. And I'll show some pictures on this so you can see better views of it. And what that does is when the ball comes up in the saucer, it hits that metal bracket, it will absorb the energy from the ball, and the ball will have a better chance of falling back into the eject hole. So it's not going to be 100% of the time, but you're going to switch your percentages from a large amount of failure shots to a large amount of success shots. So once again, this little foam rubber from this vinyl foam weather seal, you can just cut you a 1-inch by 1-inch piece. And I think it's 3/4 of an or 1/4 inch thick. You'll stick that on the metal, clean that metal bracket first. Stick that on there, and when the ball hits it, it will absorb the energy of the ball, and then the ball will fall into the eject hole. Okay, in this segment, we want to talk about properly adjusting your flipper bats to make the shot on the ramp or the saucer underneath the ramp or any of these other shots. You got to have your flipper bats adjusted properly. And to do that, you'll use these pinholes. They're called roll pins. They're located in your playfield. And what you do is you can just take a toothpick and you can stick it in the roll hole. Let's see if I can do this like that. And you adjust your bat. So the bat should just be barely touching it, if touching it at all. And if you notice over here, on the right flipper bat, I'll put that in. And this flipper bat is missing it barely. And we'll talk about that's intentional. We'll talk about that in a different segment of this video. But we'll use these roll pins to make sure your flipper bat's not too high or too low. So I'll show you some video clips here on how to adjust your flipper bats. And that makes sure they're set up properly for the game. Because every game will have a different angle on these bats. They're not all the same. All right, right here you see where I have the toothpick in the roll pin. And over here there's no toothpick in the roll pin. We haven't done this flipper yet. And from above you can see where the flipper is lined up with the toothpick that's in the roll pin. If you notice over here, the flipper's too low. Okay, so we'll come back and we'll adjust that. We'll put the toothpick in that roll pin and adjust this flipper up. But this one looks pretty good. Okay, this time we have the toothpick on the right hand flipper. The left flipper's been adjusted. And we come over here and you notice this one's not quite touching, and that's intentional because I want to have a little bit more of a back flip into the under ramp saucer. So it's just a little bit, doesn't have to be a whole lot, but if you notice there's just a space between that. So this one's been adjusted and this one's been adjusted. So this will let us do the back flip from the right flipper to the saucer that's under the right ramp right there. Okay, once we place our toothpick in the roll pin, then we lift the playfield up. Now I've already removed the 3 balls, so you don't have to worry about them coming crashing through. So we lift up the playfield and we come to the underside of the playfield, and this is the flipper paw. So this right here is a flipper bat that's sticking through. You just loosen this nut ever so slightly. Now if you notice here, I've got like a black Sharpie marker on the stem of the flipper bat and on the flipper paw, and that's just to give me a reference mark. So if I ever want to make an adjustment, it's like that's where I had it, or it's just ever so slightly to do the backhand. But you can adjust off of this line by rotating the flipper bat one way or the other. And then once you get that the way you want, you just tighten this down. In the same way with this flipper over here. And if you want to make any adjustments to the side flipper, you do the same over here. So, sorry, let me get to the same right over to the same right here. All right.
Oh, looks like rain.
All right. Now usually you'll want to adjust your flipper bats for one reason is you just rebuilt your flipper bats. So the flipper paw and the plunger, they're different than what was in there before. Or you're not going to rebuild it and you're just going to use the old parts in there and they're so worn out that the flipper pads or the flipper bats are really behind. You want to adjust them back up. So I've got a parts bag here of a flipper rebuild kit. These are brand new parts. And here's some old parts that I salvage. And I want to show you the difference of why this could cause a problem and really why you want to rebuild your flipper bats after they've been in the arcade for 10 or 15 years. Okay, so these are the parts from an old flipper that I replaced. So this is your flipper paw right here. And this is your flipper plunger. And this brownish piece is the flipper link. And this is a coil stop. Okay, so this part's off an old flipper. And then here's the new parts if you're going to rebuild. These would be the parts. So here's the coil stop off a new one. And here is the flipper paw The gray thing is the plunger link, and this is the plunger. And I want to show you the difference between the old and the new part. So here are the coil stops. If you look at them at an angle, this thing, the new one is smooth. The old one is concave. You can see where it's been hammered so many times, it's hammered that in. Okay? And the new one is smooth, the old one's concave. So that's going to let your flipper plunger travel just ever so slightly, a millimeter, right? Nothing. You think, oh, that's not enough. It's enough because it's going to be combined with something else. So here's a new plunger. Here's an old plunger. This plunger is smooth, flat. This plunger link, it's beveled. So this thing has been used so much that the bevel is worn off. So once again, that's a millimeter or so. So that this plunger will travel more, and it's going to travel more into the coil stop because the coil stop's concave. So this plunger link and pawl is going to travel more. And so what that does to the flipper bat is this your flipper bat. If the plunger is traveling more, your plunger's either going to go too far up like this, or it's going to sag too far down. So people will adjust it, and so to make it travel right this way, they'll adjust it down. So when you have wear in old parts, these are going to go banging together like this every time you hit the flipper bats. This is going to travel further than a new set will. So you could have a game that's working perfectly fine, and you put in a new, you rebuild your flippers, and now the game's not working fine. You can't make any of your shots. It's because the game was dialed in with those old worn out parts. You put the new parts in, you've got to adjust for a different length of stroke in your flipper due to a different length in your plunger, and the coil stop letting this plunger length go a little bit farther. So the way you do that is you adjust your flipper bats up and down using these roll pins and the screws on the flipper pawl. So that's how it all interrelates together. Not just on Whirlwind, any pinball machine, any pinball, back from the EMs to the early solid states to these mid-range 80s and early 90s games to modern games. They all work the same with the plunger, the coil stop, the plunger link, and this pawl. They all work the same, and they all have that issue with they will wear over time. So you should always rebuild your flippers if you buy an old game, but when you rebuild your flippers, you're going to have to make adjustments on your flipper bats. And then you can dial your game in to make the shots on your game. Alright, that wraps up this video where I show you how to make a simple modification to the eject hole that's located underneath the right ramp on the Whirlwind Pinball Machine, so that when you make those shots, a high percentage of those shots will actually land in the eject hole instead of actually being deflected out. I hope this trick actually helps you improve and enjoy your Whirlwind Pinball Machine even more than you do right now. Now keep watching my YouTube channel for other videos I'll be releasing about home arcades, specifically pinball machines and video games. Now go ahead, click on that subscribe button, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to ring that bell and you'll get notified when I add content to my YouTube channel. Now if you like this video, hit the thumbs up. If you dislike this video, hit the thumbs down. And if you have any feedback, leave it in the comments section below. I really enjoy reading and getting positive comments. All right, now go out there and have a great day and play some classic pinball machines.